Welcome to the Health and Wealth Power Hour, the podcast that provides you with the knowledge and insights you need to achieve physical, mental, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Arlen Pickett, a business consultant who's passionate about helping people achieve a more balanced and healthier life. Each week, we'll deep dive into topics related to health and wealth, including retirement income planning, innovative healthcare solutions, alternative funded health plans, and specific actions individuals and business owners can take to gain control of their finances, have access to affordable quality health care, and achieve peace of mind. We'll also be joined by innovative experts who will share their knowledge and insights on prevalent topics. So, whether you're looking to grow your wealth or improve your health, you've come to the right place. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and empowered. Let's get started. Well, how about that? It is time for another exciting episode of the Health and Wealth Power Hour. I am your host, Arlen Pickett. Great to have you with us today. We're going a little bit different today because finally, and some of you think it's happened a long time ago, but the show has gone to the dogs. That's right. The Health and Wealth Power Hour has gone officially to the dogs. That's right. It's dog training day. Dog training is what we're going to talk about today. Our fuzzy friends, our furry friends, the loves of our lives in many cases. If you're my son and his beautiful wife, there's 6 dogs. That's right. No grandkids yet, but I got a whole daggum yard and house full of grand dogs over at their place. So I definitely know about dogs. I've had dogs pretty much my entire life as well. Have an awesome Catahoula leopard dog and my boy, Raylan, the German Shepherd, with us today. So we are going to talk about lots of different things on dog training today, and we're going to talk a whole lot about Raylan. I've already kind of talked some with Brady Folk, who is with us today, and he is a dog training expert, about the very unique life of Raylan so far. And we think it's going to be a great opportunity to kind of give y'all some ideas of what your pet can actually go through and how you can get them around it. But I think Brady's going to have ideas well beyond that. But let's give a warm welcome, and it is such a pleasure to have Brady Folk with us today. Brady, thank you so much for being on the Health and Wealth Power Hour, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to share, and I want people to know before we begin, if you have a dog and you want them to listen better, you're in the right place, so congratulations. And if you don't want them just to listen better, but you want to have a better connection with your dog, you want more focus, more reliability when you're out and around town, you're definitely in the right place too. So I appreciate everyone who's tuned in right now. It's going to go for maybe 45 minutes, an hour. We're going to talk about Raylan and some common issues that I see and share some stories about my journey and how I got started. And maybe it sounds a little bit like someone of yours out there. So I'm very excited for this. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that the great place to start is I feel like a lot of people think they end up with on a short end of the stick and say, you know what? I just ended up with a bad dog. My dog don't listen. My dog never does what I wanted to. He's just broken. He's just a bad dog. Is there really any such thing as a bad dog?
No, there's no such thing as a bad dog. I believe dogs are given to us for a spiritual journey. I think they're spiritual teachers, and some people get dogs and they are just amazing. They don't got to do any training with them. They just come out just like very. And I'm like, that's amazing. You have some great karma because the universe gave you a very special gift. So just take this, because most people, they don't get these gifts. And it's an opportunity for us to connect with our dogs and to learn how they think. I like to remind people the average dog, and I've trained Chihuahuas, Pomeranians, German Shepherds, Huskies, Australian Shepherds, Poodles, and everything in between. The average dog can learn 165 words. So I have a pretty good feeling your dog could learn 20 or 30 more words quite easily. You just need to know the formula to speak to them, to communicate with them. And once you guys understand this, which is what I'll be sharing today, then you can exponentially add words and meaning to your dog's life.
And by doing that, it really does the most amazing thing. And that is, all of a sudden, that bad dog is such a good dog. And it changes your life for the better, just having that companionship and not having that battle. Because you didn't get that pet to have a battle to begin with.
Yeah.
Just talked to someone earlier today. It's interesting. You talked about Pomeranians, and they had two Pomeranians, and they're a little bit older couple. But one of the issues that they had is the dog that they had in place already and the two Pomeranians were puppies. They got them they were just little balls of fur, right? Just little balls of fur with legs on them. And the dog hated them, absolutely hated those puppies. And it caused a lot of strife in the house. They kind of had to keep them away from each other. And what do you do when you bring in new animals to a situation and the incumbent, as it were, is very unhappy with the newcomer?
Yeah, that's a very good question because there's a lot of things that are happening in that moment. So you got to make sure that you're paying attention to the environment that you introduce them in, that make sure that everyone's safe. We have 2 guinea pigs here. And when we brought the guinea pigs in the house, the dogs are obviously very curious. It's like, what are these little things? Like, these are new toys. And it's like, no, these aren't toys. These are her friends. Okay. And there's very specific things that I would do to help teach them that. Even if it's just like laying calmly on their bed and just watching as we interact with these other puppies, and then just rewarding them with like 10 out of 10 treats, or a toy if they like play with toys, or even just like loving on them occasionally too. But showing them that like these new people or these new pups in the house or these new guinea pigs or whatever it is means great things for you. And the way you get this thing is you communicate to me by laying on your bed. And that's my biggest thing, is teaching animals how to communicate to one another, or communicate to us rather, is if they have to go to the bathroom, we teach them to ring bells at the door, right? If they want a treat, we teach them to sit or to go to their bed. There's like many different ways for them to show us these things.
Yeah, that's interesting that it would be down that same route. I really wouldn't have thought that, but it makes perfect sense, right? If I bring this in and you can see I'm loving on it and care about it, then you shouldn't be against it.
And I'm also going to reward you. And some dogs, they like their space at first, and I get it. I'm a hugger, but not everyone is a hugger, so I can't just go up hugging everyone. So it's like, all right, you can have your place. This is your safe place. And I want to make sure that you find these puppies valuable. So when we see their face, great things happens to you, and you don't got to do anything for it. So I just want to make sure that association is very clear for them that we like these things.
So why would, in some instances, so I mentioned earlier, I have a Catahoula leopard dog named Belle, and she's really kind of ambiguous. She don't care about other dogs. She really just doesn't pay him a whole lot of attention, except for puppies. She doesn't want anything to do with a puppy. If a puppy is anywhere around, she's heading the other direction.
Yeah.
And of course, what does the puppy want to do? Absolutely wants to play with her. And I think it's that action right there that tells the puppy, oh, look, let's go play with this.
Yeah, it's a game.
What's going on there, Brady?
It's a game of chase. The puppy sees it, and the puppy doesn't know that the dog doesn't like it. I'm going through that right now with the client. They have a 6-month-old lab, and then they have a 2-year-old toy Australian Shepherd. And this toy Australian Shepherd does not like the puppy energy. Okay, it's like too much. And so it's twofold, right? The puppy's taking cues from the older dogs, because not all older dogs like puppies, right? You got to be very careful with them. Totally different energies. So the little dog, the puppy was taking up the signs, like the dog would bark or growl, and then the puppy would like walk away. And I was like, those are the moments to reward the puppy. You should be listening to when people are mad or other dogs are mad, and you should disengage and walk away, and great things happen. And then the other dog, it's good that you growl because you're communicating without biting. Some people think that they want to like stop the growling, but the growling is actually what keeps dogs safe, because when it's communicated and it's heard, then everything settles. But it's dogs who are stopped from growling, and then they learn, well, I can't growl, so I'm just gonna bite. And so it's like, okay, so this is good. We can separate. Now, as the puppy, if the puppy were to keep jumping on this dog and not disengage, then yeah, it's a cue for us to separate these two and to redirect the puppy to a toy or to something different, because it's our job as parents to like step in and play that mediator role. And yes, it's important to let dogs communicate, but also sometimes puppies don't get it. There's lots of puppies who don't do good in that first altercation, and I gotta like separate them and get a toy and be like, hey, come get this toy over here. And then the other dog, I gotta show them how to go, them to disengage too, because they also have the ability to walk away. And then in between that, like I worked with a dog and a cat, and they their house is super messy, and we helped clean up the house and give them to like clean up the energy a little bit. And then we took a baby gate and we put the dog on one side and the cat on the other side, and they both really like tuna. And so we got some tuna, and like we would like see each other's face and then give them both a scoop of tuna. And it got to the point to where they could like lick each other's tongues through the gate, and they were like, oh, I love you. Like I like every time I see you, like we're getting tuna. So we're changing that association too. So I'm like thinking about all these things.
That's very interesting. I like that. That also brings to mind another weird thing that I have noticed. My dog Raylan does it with the dog next door, and I've seen other dogs do this. Why do dogs try to kill each other through a fence, and then they're best friends when they see each other? What the heck is going on? I know it's not all the time, but I have seen the crazy fence fighting thing where they just like hate each other when there's a fence there. But if you see each other in the yard, you're like, hey, what's going on? Been so long since seeing you. Let's hang out, buddy.
Yeah, it's so funny, right? There's a couple of things happening. It's one, the environment plays a huge role in our behaviors. Like depending on where humans go, where dogs go, it influences like the behaviors that show up. So barriers is one of those things, or on leash. You see a lot of dogs too. When you're on leash, they're like acting the same way. So this thing to them has been associated to this behavior. So it's like, if I see a dog and there's a fence, I bark at them. But if I see a dog and there's no fence, then like we're cool. So like one, it's just like an environmental trigger for them. And then two, also there's a little bit of opposition reflex. And I think about, in my younger days, I would go to the bar, and I used to live in San Diego, and sometimes at the end of the night, there'd be guys who get in fights, and the guy's friends would be holding him back, and he's just creating this like rubber band effect where you just keep stretching this tension, and sure enough, his friends let go, and then like he springs forward, but this like, barrier is like creating this tension. So it's like I want something, but I can't have it. Something is keeping me from it. And so they're just very frustratedly saying like, I want to go. And it's not all, as you know, like you remove the fence, you think the dogs are going to kill each other and they're best friends. And it's like, it's not anger necessarily. It's just frustration of like, I want this thing and I don't know how to do it. So then it's teaching them like, when you want something, we don't just bark and bark and bark. You communicate to me that you want this thing by sitting or by laying down or by going and doing something different, and then you avoid a lot of that frustration, because then I can either tell you like, no, we're not going to do this. It's not safe for you to go chase this thing right now. Like there's too much going on. Or I can say, thank you for doing that. Yeah, you can go play with your friend. Like we're all good. It's like much clearer.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because there's been the family lives next door. They've had two different animals, but he does the same. He had done the same thing with both of them, the exact same thing. So it makes sense then to me that it's an environment that the animal changed, in other words, but the fence didn't. Right?
Yes.
So it's that barrier. It's like you're saying. It's that environment. That's interesting.
Yeah. So then the goal is just to change what that barrier means to you. Now it's like when you see that fence and the dog walk by, then you run to your bed, and then we watch from a distance. And like I like doing like dog watching, people watching with dogs, and like we'll just go to parks and we'll stay on our bed and we'll just like watch. And it's like, you don't get to say hi. We're not gonna like introduce or do anything. Like all we're doing is we're just watching right now. So it teaches them that gap between a stimulus and a response. We're just trying to grow that gap.
Okay, so along those lines, because you mentioned that dogs can get that way on a leash as well.
Yeah.
And so when we trained Raylan on leashes, the trainer we had said what's important about this is to keep moving, not let him to lead, but to be beside you, to walk beside you, not trying to pull the leash out of your hand. If you can have some slack in it, that's even better. I say that against Daphne all the time, but we're walking. We're walking. We're not stopping. There's no stopping to smell the roses. I'm walking unless I stop and tell you to sit, or unless I stop and tell you to whatever, then we're walking. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you run into a distraction and your dog's losing it, just continuing to walk and like to create distance between whatever that thing is very, very, very helpful. Now my thinking on this idea of how my dog communicates they want something. So if my dog wants to go to the bathroom, or if he wants to chase the squirrel, what they do is they sit and they'll stare at this thing. And sometimes I'll be walking and I'll just like be stopped and I'll be like, what just happened? Like, what do you want? And so they're telling me like, I want this thing. And for me now, it's a decision to say like, yes, you can go to the bathroom. Like, that's totally fine. My bad. I didn't notice that you had to go. Or if you want to go chase a squirrel and like we're on a busy road, it's like, no, you can't chase a squirrel right now. Like, come refocus back to me. So I give them, I believe, a lot in choices, and I want them to have choices, and they're the freedom to do things. And the idea is you have to do what I say first, and then you get what you want. So I'll use like a nose touch a lot of the time. So they'll come and touch their nose to me to like refocus on them. I'm like, no, we're not going to chase this squirrel. Like, come do a nose touch, and then we'll keep walking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And, I know that with Raylan in particular, Belle's always just been a good walker. Belle just walks with you. We were very blessed with her. She just, yeah, whatever. Here we go. Now, if she wants something, she'll kind of start walking that direction, which that is a problem with her. But with Raylan, he's more of a hit your hand kind of situation. He kind of goes up and he'll start hitting my hand. Did you see that? Did you hear that? Do you want that? He's not the worst walker in the world, but he does get distracted. There's no doubt about it. He does get distracted. So I want to kind of set the stage for Raylan a little bit, because you and I talked about that, and maybe talk a little bit about some of the struggles we've had with him. So Raylan he's 5 years old now. April 23rd was his birthday. Literally, that was his birthday. 5 years old. We happened to be able to had that information. He was a singlet, which, if you don't know what a singlet is exactly what it sounds like. He is, I'm talking to the audience. I know you know what a singlet is, Brady. He was the only puppy born, so he had no litter mates. His mama decided she did not want to have him anymore whenever he was 6 weeks old, and she bit him on the head, and he did not get to nurse anymore. So he was being fed, by the folks that had him at that time. He was not our puppy when all this happened. But they immediately started trying to find a home for him, and within just a few days of this happening, we actually brought him into our home. He still had the little mark on his head from where the mama had bit him. And so that was the kind of the trauma from his home. He came into our house, and if you recall earlier in the podcast, I mentioned how Belle hates puppies. Well, she wanted nothing to do with him. Absolutely nothing. Her mode of speaking to him was growl all the time. And for the first 3 months of his life, I believe she lived pretty much upstairs because she didn't want to be anywhere where he was. and so that, as much as we loved on him, he did not have any canine friends whenever he was younger. And so we always laughed about the fact that he didn't know how to dog, because he had not been around other dogs at that time. So there's a little background on Raylan there for you guys in the audience. I would say he's fairly well adjusted. He's very good. He's very loyal. He's very protected. Some of those things are naturally occurring in German Shepherds. That's another thing I didn't mention earlier. He's a German Shepherd, full-blood German Shepherd. And now him and Belle are basically inseparable. When he was about 3 months old, she decided that he was, all of a sudden, he was welcome to the pack. And so they've been buddies ever since then. And she's very protective of him, which is kind of funny for, she's about half his size. and she's very protective of him whenever anything looks like it may be endangering him. All of a sudden she's at the forefront saying, "I'll get him for you, buddy." So it's kind of a funny deal. Another little note on Belle is she was a rescue. We don't know exactly what age that she is, but she's somewhere between 10 and 12 years old. And she's never had puppies. So she never had any puppies herself. She just decided she didn't like them. So there's a little insight on my two crazy animals. And I guess it would be interesting to kind of hear your thoughts, Brady, on if you were presented a situation similar to that, especially with Raylan as a youngster, what would be your recommendation? I mean, obviously he's 5 years old now, so there's nothing we can go back and do as a puppy. But what would be your recommendation on how to handle a situation like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting pieces to this puzzle, which I'm curious. This is very interesting. And my question for you would be like, what would be your result? Like, do you want to be able to take them out to more places? Do you want them to listen better inside the house? It sounds like him and Belle are getting along well, so
Yeah.
that has settled down. What would be your outcome?
Yeah, so as far as in the house, I mean, there is no problems whatsoever. He rings his bells when he wants to go outside. I mean, we have a pet door now, so it's not really as big a deal. So he can go out the pet door whenever he wants to. There's not a whole lot of issues there. Him and Belle get along until they decide that they want to have a battle royale, but that's all play, right? And it is. They get along great, but he keeps her very active, even at her little bit elevated age. But bringing him out in public, it's a challenge. There's no doubt. It is certainly a challenge. It has maintained to be a challenge. We did send him to school, and the trainer himself was able to take him all over the place. So I know it's not him. I know it's us. Once again, the trainer took him downtown San Antonio, took him to the Riverwalk. He had pictures of him, in places where you're like, what the heck, man? I can't take him to the park. I can't take him to the dog park because he's not aggressive. He's not aggressive in the way that you think he's attacking other animals. He is, he goes after other dogs and pecks on them. Like, I mean, just headbutts them or pecks them or tramples a little dog, whatever. It's like, oh my gosh, he's just nuts. When he gets around him, it's like it's overload, sensory overload of being around all these other animals. So, in his own defense, we stopped taking him unless we go to one where there's maybe only one other animal, or there's a place where they're separated where we can be, in a separate little area with him. But that's really been he's a great loving dog around us. You can take him for a walk. He does a great job there. But yeah, taking him out in public, it is certainly a challenge.
Okay. Yeah, I understand a little bit better now. And I see this happen. And this is one thing I talk about a lot with my clients. And one of the reasons why your dog trainer had success and yet you couldn't find success yet is because the transfer of value from the food or the toys or the permission or whatever it is to you. And does that make sense a little bit?
It does.
Deeper.
No, it does. And so here's another insight on that. The third day in, because we were leaving Raylan with the dog trainer for 2 weeks. The third day in, he texted and said, I'm going to give him one more day, but I don't think he's going to do it. He's yours. He's too much yours. He's not going to listen to me. He's not going to do this. He misses you guys. He is so your dog that he's not going to listen to me. Well, the next day, it clicked, I guess. And so all of a sudden he started, and this guy has trained, kind of like you, he's trained thousands of dogs. And he says he sees it every now and then, a dog that's just so attached that his first couple of days, he said he was so, the separation anxiety was so much. He said he wouldn't do anything. He just would not do anything. He was so devastated that I had left him somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot for the dogs. And normally the first 2-3 days for me with any dog that I take is all it is just relationship building. There's very little things that I ask them to do. And it's just showing them you're safe. And a lot of dogs, they'll come in and they'll be on their best behavior, like, oh my gosh, where did my parents leave me? And like, I gotta be so good. And my goal is to get them to where they're just back to their normal selves and they're like demanding things again. And once they're demanding things, I was like, all right, now you're being yourself. Now we can actually work on like how we talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he wouldn't eat. He just wouldn't. Yeah. He didn't want to be there. Obviously, it was very interesting. But he did. He broke it out, and he did great. We learned a lot of things. He obviously learned a lot of things. But there's still that problem that we have not, as you mentioned, we have not been able to have the same success that clearly the trainer was able to achieve.
Yeah. Well, there's one of my other pups just got home. She was visiting it was her birthday on Saturday. So she went over to her sister's house and she just got back from her little birthday weekends. So she's all excited. But yeah, this transfer of value, there's a simple formula, and it's something that once I learned this, I was like, this makes so much sense. But hopefully you feel the same way once you hear what I say, because it really is simple. And yet it's not easy. You got to put in the time and you got to pay attention. And what we're doing is we're increasing this gap between a stimulus and a response. That's what we're doing. And that's how I feel like you get a thinking dog. So the formula, do you want it?
I do. Absolutely.
So the formula is how valuable your reinforcement is. Now, we should know, like, some dogs love dog food and like their labs or chow hounds, and some dogs, like these toy Australian shepherds, they're like, no, I don't like dog food that much. So we got to know if we're paying with $1 bills or if we're paying with $100 bills. That is important. And same with toys. There's different values of toys for our dogs too. And the next thing is how quickly we're reinforcing them. So say in a minute, in 60 seconds, you reinforce them 18 times. Okay. And in this particular game, we want them to touch their nose to our hand. So each time they touch their nose in our hand, we drop a treat, we catch it, and we give them the treat. So we do it 18 times. And then that is all above the environment, the distraction level of the environment. And you got distraction 1, which is like your bathroom or like your shower. There's like nothing going on in there. It's very low stimulation. Like the dog only has to focus on you. 2, being out at a park, to where it's like level 100 distractions. There's lots of things going on. And so our goal is to get to the point to where at first, we want to reward the dog 18 times for touching our nose, but we want to get to the point to where he'll touch our nose 18 times and we only have to reward him 4 times. That makes sense? So he'll keep giving us the behavior. And once we have that in the bathroom on a level 1, then we take that and we go to another location that's a little bit more distracting. And we start off again, we reward them 18 times, and our goal is to go and get them to go from 18 back down to 4. And once we have their focus back down to 4, we go to another environment. And we keep going to different environments and we keep ramping up how fast we deliver treats, and then we systematically lower it. And so they just want to work with us. And so you'll see when a dog works with me, they don't care if I have treats or toys or anything. They see Brady as like, I just want to be with Brady and interact with Brady. And like, there's just this trust and connection between us because we built that. And then I've taken them to different places, and then I've showed them, like, even in this higher distracting place, like, I'm still the person that all good things come from. And if you do what I ask, then you get all these things that you want. And if you're smart about your training, you strategically place things around to reward your dog that they want. But first, they got to come do a nose touch with you. First, they got to sit. First, they got to walk by your side. First, they got to do some behavior. It could be anything. But that transfer, you have it when your dog is just like looking at you, wagging their tail, and they're just like, I'm ready. Like, what do you want to throw at me? But a lot of people, they're just trying to bribe their dogs or intimidate their dogs to focus on them. And when you're coming from that place, you've either got to get really loud and intimidating at these places and like really raise your voice, or like have a device like a prong collar or something like that, which I don't use any of those. Or then you're getting into bribes, but bribes are a slippery slope too, because don't get me wrong, I like to pay with $100 bills, but you still got to do what I say first. It's like, for me, I train in jujitsu, and I also like burritos. But if I eat the burrito and go to jujitsu, I throw up. I gotta go to jujitsu. I gotta do the hard thing first, and then I can get rewarded. And once the dog understands that mindset, and the trainers and the humans understand that mindset too, you can go way more places with your dog, because your dog is like, I understand this concept because we started at such a small place. And for me, it's like, if you want intense focus on you, if you want a reliable, thoughtful dog, you got to put them in a container where you can build that behavior. But most people just expect this thing without ever giving their dog an opportunity or a place to cultivate it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's very important, because even in our case, where obviously after our dog finished training Raylan, he trained us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And because that's part of it. I mean, it's actually the biggest part of it. If technically speaking, I guess you could actually train the owner, and if the owner learned all the things, then he could train his own dog, and you wouldn't have to have the dog trainer, technically speaking, if they knew all the things to do.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I'll tell you the honest to gosh truth here is that we don't put in the time that we really should in keeping up and doing all of those things. He still knows. I mean, he can pick up right back where he was, but it's us giving him the time to do it. And there is, without a doubt, he is a tremendously higher level of knowledge and listening and everything than he was before he went to training. But he has certainly not achieved all that he could have if we would have done a better job ourselves in reinforcing that. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And that, I think that's one of the most difficult things for any of us to understand, because I really, we had an Australian Shepherd years ago, and we sent her to school, and we this was a long time ago. This is 30 years ago. And when we got her back, we expected her to be completely fixed, and we didn't have to do anything. She's just going to be this new dog. And I think too many people believe that. I mean, we knew we were going to have to work with Raylan, and we haven't done as good a job. We work with him, but not as much as we should. But I think too many people have the same mindset we did with our Australian Shepherd, thinking that when that dog came back, she's just going to be she's going to listen to everything we say, and it's going to be a beautiful, wonderful thing because I sent her to the dog trainer and I spent X amount of money, whatever it is, and they're going to fix her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hardest part. And for me, I've had to change how I offer my programming now, because I used to do a 2-week board and train with the dog, and I include 3 or 4 lessons and to integrate the stuff. And yet there's still be challenges. And I ran into people procrastinating a lot, or blaming, or hesitating, or whatever it may be. So now I offer 4 months or either a 1-year program. And in that time, I give you everything. There's one-on-one lessons. So we can meet up in person, and I can give you these principles of how to train your dog, some of the things that we've talked about. And then there's a board and train, because the board and train is important, because I do this all day, every day. And a lot of it is doing it over and over until it sticks. And I can create a dog who loves their crate. And yes, you got to keep tuning it. I compare it to tuning a guitar or tuning a piano. Yeah, you tune it and then you play it, and then it gets out of tune. Then you got to retune it. And teaching them how to tune their own instruments is very big. And then we do group classes too, and I partner them up with another person. So now you got an accountability buddy and someone to be like, why is your dog doing so good and my dog isn't? It's like, you guys learn exactly the same thing. I teach the same lessons over and over again. Some people are like, these games don't work. I was like, that's not true. There's hundreds of people that have had success before you. It's not the games. It's like how you're playing the games. So like, let's get back to being honest, and like, let's just practice a little bit more. So then it's my job to create an environment where it's rewarding for you to practice. So I got to make sure that you understand all the opportunity, all the peace, all the freedom, all the love and joy you're going to feel with your dog, all the connection. Sometimes even before you go out somewhere, you just take your dog on a 10-minute walk and you'll have more connection. They'll be a better dog. Yeah, but people just like throw their dog in the car, go to this place. They haven't taken their dog anywhere in 2 months, and they expect their expectations are like out of this world. And I'm like, guys, you go to the bar and you just want your dog to lay there, and like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And part of me is like advocating for the dog and then showing the parents like, all right, so now that we're all on the same page, like what would be a better option for us to do? Like, what do you think we would do that would make this more helpful? And 99% of the times the human knows, like you already know what you have to do. My job is just showing you that you have it inside of you and that doing it would be a lot of fun. You have your dog for, some people have them for less than 15 years. Hopefully you have them for 15, 16, 17 years, but your time is limited. So make sure that you utilize it.
Yeah. So let's take. I really want to hear your origin story, why you got in here. But I've got a thought in my head right now. I don't want to lose this. So what is on the training side? You talked about lots of different dogs, but all dogs are not the same. We know that. You mentioned a Chihuahua, so it cannot be the same process to train a Chihuahua as it is to train a Lab, as it is to train a German Shepherd, as it is to train a Border Collie, because there's different energy levels. As you talk about, like a Lab, we had a chocolate Lab named Chewy. I've never seen a dog eat faster than that dog ate. That dog could eat some food, man. I mean, it just snap your fingers and a whole bowl of food is gone. But as you go across, they all have, there's other dynamics into each of these dogs, right? So what is the same and what is different? How do you approach a different dog?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I separate the dog and their behaviors or patterns. So I look at what's happening, and some breeds have specific things. Like Australian Shepherds, they like to nip and herd things. The Terriers or Chihuahuas, Dachshunds, they like to go chase rats and stuff, and like to bury and to burrow into things. And so of course, you got these breed specific things that are going on. And if you believe in principles, I believe in principles over tactics. And so I do two things. I use Pavlovian or classical conditioning, which means that there's a stimulus and then a behavior and then a consequence. And the next thing I use is like ABA therapy or operant conditioning. And it's this idea that humans or dogs are doing anything for only two reasons, either to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. Now, what Brady gets really good at is creating patterns. So like A happens, B happens, C happens, and making it very predictable for the dog. And then I'm training an incompatible behavior, whatever that may be. If it's a dog barking at someone or lunging, or if it's like jumping on people, whatever it may be, I say, okay, well, the stimulus is the dog walking by, or the person entering the door, or the car pulling up into the front driveway for them to start barking. So I isolate that stimulus, and then I show them, when this happens, I want you to do this behavior instead, which is incompatible with whatever it is that you're doing right now. And then I associate a ton of pleasure to it. I know everything that this dog loves to do, and I associate all of those things to it. And then I'm elegant in the way that I associate pain. And the story I tell is, when I was a kid, my parents did this to me and my siblings. I convinced my siblings to, when we were trick-or-treating, to say, trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. Okay? So super silly. I'm the oldest of 6, so I got lots of siblings, and so they all said yes. So we go to the first house and we say, like, smell my feet, give me something good to eat. And the guy just looks at us. He doesn't give us any candy. And then we try to take the candy ourselves, and he just covers the bowl. And he's like, no. He doesn't even say no. He just covers the bowl. And then we just stand there awkwardly. And then there's a line building up behind us. The kids are like, what's taking so long? It's very uncomfortable for us. It's very painful. Did the guy hit us? Did the guy yell at us? Did he say, what do you have to say? No. He just made it very uncomfortable for us. And finally, one of my siblings are like, can we please have some candy? And he goes, you may. And we go to the next house. Same thing. Super silly, right? But it's painful. Or my friends would come over and they'd be like, can Brady play? And my mom goes, is your room clean? If my room wasn't clean, I'm not allowed to go out. And that's painful. Brady made a choice to mess up his room. And so I give the dogs the same choices. And so it's like, they want to do something, like go outside. Did you sit at the front? Did you sit at the door? If you sit at the door, we're on the same page. You're good to go. If you don't sit at the door doesn't open. Like, this is how we communicate. So I'm associating pleasure to doing the things that I want, because as soon as you sit, the door opens. It's like magic. And so now you know the magic word. It's not abracadabra, it's sitting, and then the world's yours, right? I want to give you everything. So when you ask about different breeds, yes, I'll like look at whatever is happening. Like German Shepherds, yeah, sometimes they do have a lot of separation anxiety. Sometimes their bites and their barks are really scary. So we got to teach them a new behavior, and or to how to control that and how to put it on cue. And you like attack dogs, right? Like some of these dogs, you bark and bark and bark and bark and bark, and I shake all these things, and you have all these distractions, and then when I tell you to go, you go. And so there's a bunch of ways you can handle it, but the principles is you train in a behavior that you want that's incompatible with the bad behavior. If it's nipping, we're going to train you to be able to come when called faster, to pull off of things, right? So if you're chasing another dog, now I can call you and you can come back. Every dog needs to know a recall, and now we just got to do it with bigger distractions. And Australian Shepherds are that's just a really high distraction versus another breed of dog who like, I don't care about hurting these dogs. It's stupid. But for them, it's a huge distraction. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And that, I think that's kind of where I was going there, is because there's other dogs. Let's just, we see, we have a lot of deer around where we are, and deer runs across there. It used to be almost impossible to get Raylan to not chase them. He's now where he wants to, and he'll look at you. He'll like you're saying, he is set on go. All I'd have to say,
can I
go get him, and man, he would be gone. But I don't tell him go get him ever. He doesn't get to chase the deer. That's not what we do. Whereas Belle, the Catahoula, who's actually a hunting dog, they were bred for hog dogs. She could care less. I told her, I said, that's probably why you got kicked out of the herd when you were a little girl, and that's why they set you out there, is because you wouldn't chase anything. You're like, let's just hang out here.
Yeah, let's just chill.
Those hogs didn't do anything to me. I think we ought to just stay at home today.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because it's different breeds. One don't care. Chewy never, Chewy was around deer a lot too. As a lad, he could care less. He couldn't care. He'd just look up and be like, whatever. He wouldn't even pay attention to them. He just look at, oh yeah, whatever. Those are some weird looking dogs. Okay. Yeah, he can care less. So when's dinner time, Dad? That was his big question is, when's dinner time? But yeah, just the most lovable dog, just a giant big teddy bear that didn't care about anything else around him, really. But it is, I think a lot of times it is breed, because I knew other people that had labs that were very, very similar. All of his siblings and everything, because we knew we had got from a family member. All of them were the same way. They were all just chill animals. Just didn't, all they want to do is just hang out, eat, and sleep on the couch if possible.
Yeah, those are great dogs. Those are helpful. Sometimes those are the harder ones for me to train because they're already like chilling. And I was like, I need some energy. Like, can we get moving? Can we do some things? They're like, I just want to take another nap. But I'm like, come on, give me something. But I don't see many of those dogs, because those dogs, people love them. They're like, yeah, my dog just sleeps and hangs out, and
yeah,
great.
I don't want Brady to break him.
Yeah, I don't need him doing those things Brady does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because usually those dogs are with. I'm not trying to be ugly to anybody, but those are with lower energy people, and they want a lower energy dog, right? So it's that match made in heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other side, a high energy dog with a low energy person, and that's a terrible match.
Yeah. Now I got to have some more conversations. Hopefully people think about this before. Like, I got an Australian Shepherd when I was 22 years old. My origin story is I grew up with dogs, and the way that my parents trained them and the way my parents interacted with me and my siblings, there was a lot of intimidation. There was a lot of like physicality to it. And it was something that I just didn't really like very much. And watching my siblings go through it, I went through it, the dogs go through it. And so when I got my dog, I was like, all right, I'm going to train this guy differently. And so I got the best treats, the best dog beds, the best everything. He would sleep in my bed. And so I would just try to bribe him with everything. And then that's quickly led to a lot of problems where I stopped hanging out with my friends because like I had a dog, but then they're like, Brady, come out. Like it's an hour. Like you never see us anymore. And I was like, okay, I'm going to come out. And so I leave Bumblebee in my room. He has like my full room. I shut the door. I give him a couple bones. He had like 5 bones actually. I come home or I go hang out with my friends and I come home and I open the door and the first thing that hits me is the smell. And I'm like, oh, something's very wrong. Something's very wrong. And then I open my door and then sure enough, there's like poop everywhere and like a part of the carpet's missing. And my new Tim Ferriss book is like torn to pieces. And my dad's Father's Day present was in the closet that he got into like 4 different. Exactly. I don't know if you've experienced, you probably have. Like anyone else here is feeling that. I feel for you too, because you're just like, and it's like 11:30 at night and you're like, I was about to come home and go to bed, dude.
Go to bed.
And of course, he's excited. He's like, Dad, look, created. Like his tail's going. He's all pumped. And I'm like, I got to go to Home Depot and rent a carpet cleaner now. Like, I was up till like 3 a.m. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. So that was my rock bottom. And then I was like, okay, well, obviously I'm not going to use the same thing my parents did. I'm not bribing isn't working. I need to find another method. Like, how do I do this elegantly? And so I found Susan Garrett. She's a 30+ time world agility champion. She's done this with 7 or 8 different dogs. So it's not like you just get one blessed dog. It's like she's done this repeatable over and over again. So I started learning from her, and I've invested thousands of dollars into her crate training, coming and called her recallers program, her agility courses, like, and all these things start from having a great family dog. And a great family dog to me is one that is focused, thoughtful, and reliable, and not just at home, at other places too. And it's not that I have to like beg you or bribe you to interact with you. It's like you genuinely love working with me. And so I've trained dogs to open up the fridge and get a water bottle and bring it to me and shut the fridge. I've trained a pot-bellied pig who was abused and neglected. I trained her how to sit and lay down and how to paint. And so she's raised over $10,000 for this nonprofit painting. So I've worked with turkeys and goats and pigs and dogs and guinea pigs, because for me, it's more about the connection. And animals, even though they're different, these are all different animals, right? Like they all have different breed specific things, but yet our brains work very similarly. Like we're making associations all the time. You're making an association right now to Brady's voice and what I'm saying, and if you like me or not. And so all these things are happening whether we consciously are aware of it or we're unconsciously aware of it. And so same for dogs. So I just get really good. I got really good at creating these associations, and now the goal is to show and teach other people how to be their own dog trainer. So like when you run into a problem, because problems are always a part of life. That's what people don't understand a lot of the times. It's like, oh, I'm done dog training. It's like, no, the goal is for you to have the tool belt, because like your roof is going to break eventually. You don't just get one roof. Like you got to fix these things. And going to the gym, you can't just go to the gym one time. You got to keep practicing. And so dog training, you're going to run into problems. You're going to run into obstacles, and the obstacle is always the way. And so I love it. And so the question I ask people is like, what obstacle do you need to overcome now? Like what would change your life? What would it bring you?
You know, I told you we had an Australian Shepherd. So we didn't have the exact same situation you did, but she was pretty destructive. Their little cuckoo pants is what we always would say. She hated this mulberry tree. I guess, we don't know. We had a mulberry tree in our backyard. She ate the thing. She chewed on it. It was a big round tree. Folks, we're talking about a pretty good, you could barely put your arms around it. She chewed on it so much she killed it, and it fell on our house.
What? How big was this tree?
It was big, man. I'm telling you. She chewed on. She didn't chew it down. She killed it, is what I'm saying. She didn't like chew it in half like a beaver and it fell down. She chewed on the bottom of this tree so much, she literally killed it, and then it fell on our house during a storm.
Oh my gosh.
But she did. She ate the back of a door. We left her in a room. She ate the back of a door. She didn't like plugs, sockets, wall sockets. She chewed the wall around the wall sockets. Now she's quite a, and I'll tell you what, you'd never find a more lovable dog. Okay, but she took it to another level whenever you left her by herself. And no, we did not know crate training, and that was our eventual answer was to crate train her. But we didn't know that, and she was younger. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So I have a very specific thing to ask. You talked about what is your problem, what is your thing today. And I hear about this all the time, and I've noticed a little bit with Raylan now, and he's never had this issue, and Bell still doesn't have it. He doesn't like Thunder. He's all of a sudden decided Thunder is not his friend. I've known we've had other dogs that a little bit, but he has basically a panic attack now when it starts thundering. But here's a weird one for you. Fireworks don't bother him. So you would have thought that it was going to be something, maybe both, right? But the thunder is driving him crazy nowadays.
Yeah. Well, you want to play in the sandbox? You want to work through this together?
Yeah. So, what would cause it to all of a sudden? In other words, he's never cared his entire life. He's slicked through storms with no problem, but all of a sudden in the last 6-8 months, he decides that thunder is not his friend.
Yeah, that's a good question. We may never know the answer. And for me, I run into a lot of rescue dogs and dogs that come that I have no idea what their background is, and it's impossible to know.
Okay.
So the why, I don't know. But what I do know is what happened is there was a significant emotional event. And whatever it was significant, and it was an emotional event. And who knows? But the interesting part, right? You said he's not afraid of fireworks, but he is afraid of thunder. And for me, a little personal story, and I'll tell you a dog story too. When I lived in San Diego, we were right next to the airport, me and my roommate. And we didn't know this before we got our apartment, but there was a plane path that would go over our apartment all day long, starting at like freaking 6 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, not cool.
Not cool. And I remember like we would get so annoyed about it. Like we'd be like, another freaking plane? Like what the heck? And then one time we were drinking, and then my buddy was like, cheers. And I was like, cheers. And then another plane went by and we're like, cheers. And like an hour later, we've cheers so many freaking times. And I will remember that memory for the rest of my life, because we were so drunk, and we were just every time a plane goes by. And now when we hang out, we will go and we'll hear a plane, and we'll just look at each other and we'll smile and we'll laugh. And we're like, you remember? And so that just, we don't have to drink every time, but we created a whole nother emotion around it. Yeah. And so I watch a lot of dogs during 4th of July, and a lot of dogs are afraid of fireworks. Absolutely. And this theory or this principle works for everything. We're just classically conditioning what we want. And so I would use the same method for thunder or fireworks. But every time a firework went off, I got very excited, and I ran to the kitchen and I grabbed some whipped cream, and then I ran back into the room, and I would give everyone like a little dollop of whipped cream. And at first they're like, what the heck is going on? But then after like the third firework went off, and like I brought out this whipped cream, and sometimes I would switch it up. I would bring out different peanut butter snacks or like different things that different dogs would like. Tuna, you could have whatever you want. And then the dogs were like, oh, this is great. Whenever a firework goes off, you're going to run to the kitchen and go bring us a snack? Like, okay, like I can handle this. And so like by the end of the night, they're like, oh, this is great. I love this. And so for thunderstorms, I would do the same thing. I would get excited and be like, the obstacle is the way. And then show them when this stimulus happens, this is the behavior that I'm going to do. And then this is the excitement that you get out of it.
Very interesting. It makes perfect sense when it's explained that way. The problem is when it's, 1 o'clock in the morning, it's hard to get too excited about it.
Yeah, you got to anticipate some of these things. And so on that note, you could go on YouTube and you could play thunderstorm sounds, because Like people say that a lot to me, and I was like, well, YouTube is a very cool place. You could play doorbells, you could play cars, garbage trucks, thunderstorms, fireworks. You could play all of these things and simulate them. And now you have it under stimulus control, so you could hit play or pause whenever you want. And so the goal is to grow this gap. So at first you just like hear the firework, give them a treat, hear the firework, give them a treat, hear the firework, give them a treat, hear the firework, give them a treat. You're just conditioning it. And then you're going to play the firework and you're going to look at them. And they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, where's my treat, dude?
What you
Oh, it worked. Right? But if you play the firework and then they start barking, you're like, okay, we need to go back and condition it some more. But yeah.
So same process there with doorbell. You brought up the doorbell because that's a very common thing, right? Doorbell goes off, every dog in the neighborhood goes crazy, right? That's just the way it is. But it's the same process then.
Yes. And doorbells and knocking at the doors, interesting one, because I do want my dogs to bark a little bit when people come to the door, because it is like a safety thing. And a lot of my clients are like, I don't want my dog to never bark. Like if someone's coming in at 3 a.m., like they should bark. And I was like, totally agree. But when I say like, okay, we're all done, then we're all done. So part of it is having like an on-off switch. And so we practice speak on command, and then we practice like everyone quiet and lay down. So that's something that we practice separately. And then we take the doorbell and we associate it all together, from ringing the doorbell, barking, saying, okay, all done, lay down, and then rewarding them for that behavior. So now it's like a game. It's a pattern for them. They're like, okay, when this doorbell rings, we bark, and then we wait for them to say all done, and then we lay down. And if they don't stop barking, like this is the interesting part, right? Is how you communicate this to them. If they don't stop barking, I have a blanket and I just cover the blanket. I cover the crate with a blanket. And so they lose access to seeing me and to playing the games. And so the other dogs can play the games and they get rewarded. And so this dog now is like, I'm left out of the game. So the dog stops barking, the blanket goes up, and now you're back in the game playing with everyone. And it's the dog's choice. You don't have to play the game, but if you play the game, there's a lot of good things. You're missing out on a lot of fun. So I'm never the type to force you to play my game. I just want to make it so much fun that you're like, I want to play this game. Like, this is great. That's my goal.
I really love that. That's really good, because once again, it's just like the kid, right? You put them in timeout. You're missing out on the fun because you're not playing well with others, or you're not doing what, like you're saying, you're not playing the game the way you know what to do. Don't stop pretending like you don't know what to do. And so you can sit here in timeout and think about why he was bad. think about your actions, right? So that you can join in. We want you to be part of it.
Exactly. And now one thing to add on that, I don't know if anyone else will resonate with this. I was a kid. I spent like an hour, sometimes 2 hours staring at the corner. And I remember my parents, I would think about it for a long time. Now, dad timeouts long-term are not very effective. Like, the better option is to put Brady in timeout for like 2-3 minutes and then be like, try again. What are you going to do this time? And then if I do the thing again, it's like, okay, you go back to timeout for 2-3 minutes. Now back again. Now Brady's getting mad about it. Brady, you're making the same choice over and over again. Now, if you just leave someone in timeout or in their crate for 2 hours and expect them to learn, they're just going to be like, you're dumb. Like, I didn't learn anything. And you got no other chance to try.
Yeah.
So keep your timeout short and then give them another opportunity, but be consistent.
That's great advice, because I agree with that. With my son, there was nothing you could do worse than him to put him in timeout. But it really didn't take, but like you're saying, 2, 3, 5 minutes, and the damage was done. As far as he had been put in timeout, it's leaving him there for 30 minutes wasn't going to change anything. The punishment had already been created at that point in time. So yeah,
exactly.
That's a great point. Yeah. So I know that you train like emotional support dogs as well.
Okay.
What is the intensity level of training between a regular, my dog is my lives at my house and he's just my buddy, and we hang out and he's a good dog, away from the difference from doing a full-blown emotional support animal?
Yeah. So I believe, to me, it's a difference between an educated dog and an obedient dog. And an obedient dog, sure, can go lay on their bed, mind their own business. They don't cause trouble. That's just who they are. And growing up, we had a lot of obedient dogs. They didn't rock the boat too much. Sometimes they did, and they got in trouble. But for the most part, they just were obedient. They weren't educated though. They didn't understand, like, if we asked them to sit down, go to their place, like coming when called, like none of them could come when we called them. They would just run away from us a lot of the times. And so they weren't really educated on how to communicate to us. They weren't ringing potty bells to go outside, like none of that. They slept outside most of the time, you know? So educated and obedient dogs is the big difference to me.
Really, the intensity of training between, once again, that obedient dog and I guess that educator or that emotional support dog, the dog that must have that extra. I know that there's certain certifications, obviously, a dog's got to get, trainings they have to go through to become an emotional support animal.
Yes.
I was just curious in the difference in the training, and I'm sure, I can't imagine it wouldn't be different, that the owner of that emotional support animal has to have a certain more intense training than just the common layman as well.
Yeah, and it's a lot of just reps. Like, we got to go to the places and go get the reps at Walmart, at Trader Joe's, at Home Depot, at airports, wherever it may be, to make sure your dog is good in all these situations. And then we got to train them. For a service dog, they have to know 3 actual skills, like deep pressure therapy, or how to retrieve objects if you're in a wheelchair, how to interrupt patterns, all these different things. Emotional supports, there's not that prerequisite, but we do want your dog to be very educated and understanding how to be well behaved in a lot of different environments. So a lot of the training is like teaching them these things at home and then going and doing these things in places around other dogs, around other people. So the biggest difference for me is people with emotional support dogs is they got to take them places, versus people with regular dogs, they just want them at home. Like, you can avoid a lot of problems if your dog just stays at home all the time. You know, or you could have more problems if you never take your dog on a walk. You could have more problems. But some dogs, they don't care. They just will sleep and eat and hang out.
Yeah.
People love them.
So, okay, so there's obviously even a difference between the emotional support dog and like you were talking about, a dog that's actually supporting someone that is disabled or has emotional. There's the emotional, literally, or even dogs I know that help kids with epilepsy, right?
Yeah.
They can actually, they learn that this is coming and they're there to support that person. That's some amazing stuff that animals can do, right? I mean, I've always just felt like that was absolutely incredible. But obviously the training on those is so different than your regular.
And even those dogs, it's more intense. Like, I don't train like diabetes or epilepsy or any of those, or seeing eye dogs. That's a whole nother level of training. And I aspire to be there one day, but there's a lot of details because the dog is smelling chemicals that are being emitted from the person a lot of the times. They're using their nose. And so when they smell this certain smell, it means a behavior is about to happen. And then that means they have a job they have to do, you know, and then they are obviously rewarded for doing their job.
Yeah. And then that's amazing to me that that's even possible. And, but you obviously, I know you have too, in your world, you've heard so many stories of successful life-saving events where the animals were the one that saved the life, or, kept something from not being as serious as it was going to be. And I would think that same mentality, then the smell, obviously that's what we have when we have the dogs that are walking around the airport that you hope don't come to your luggage.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, they're brilliant. I read a story about this company, they were being investigated for gas leaks, and they're like, there are no gas leaks, like nothing is getting out, like someplace in Texas. And they brought these dogs, and the dogs found like 73 like different leaks, and they were just It's insane. And they're like, there's no way that's accurate. That dog was broken. And sure enough, they dug it up and they found 73 different leaks. And they're like, nah, the dogs are very, there's no story for the dog. There's no like
Right.
ego for the dog. The dog just like, this is going on. I smell it. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no alternative motive at all, right?
Zero. And when you understand it, the dogs are literally wired. Like the dog, and that's the thing about some service dogs is you wire it so deeply that they can't not do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like it's just when I see this thing, when I smell this smell, like I go.
Yeah. It always made me think about, especially police dogs or army dogs, that when they retire, like, I don't think they ever kind of retire. Maybe they're not in the same situation, but I don't know how you're ever going to keep them. I just don't see how they could go to a regular home.
They can't. Yeah. Yeah. You got to go to some place that likes to work the dog and you can find them another outlet. Like growing up, I played football, soccer, baseball. I can't play those things really anymore. And so I had to find a different outlet for my energy. I'm still an active guy, but I can't go play football all the time.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, there's those seasons in our lives, and you're past those seasons, and you're now into the dog season.
Yes.
Well, man, what are some more, secrets? I guess some dog trainer secrets that everyone should really know. We've talked about a lot of different things, a wide variety, a lot. Thank you very much about me and my pets. But what are some secrets that really every dog owner should know?
Yeah. The most important thing for me is to train your brain to live in do land. That's one of the first things I get people to start doing is, I hear a lot, like, I want my dog to stop barking, stop jumping, stop eating things, like, stop. And that energy, if I tell you right now, like, don't think of an eagle. Stop thinking of an eagle. Like, don't think of their yellow beak or their feathers or them flying. Stop thinking of an eagle. All you can do is think of an eagle most of the time. Dogs are the same way. And if we're just telling them to stop this behavior, our brains are just focused on this thing. So we got to train ourselves to be like, what do I want them to do? So the first thing I do when I hear a problem or someone's obstacle, I go, okay, what is something alternative that this dog can do? And as soon as I can find that thing, and there's thousands of things that the dog can do. We just got to find one that we want to stay consistent with. So find that for your dog, find whatever it is. And the people ask me all the time, like, how do I start? Like, how do you even start training a dog to open up a fridge and get a water bottle out? Or how do you even start training a pig to paint? Or am I teaching my littlest dog how to ride a skateboard right now? And so there's like so many things you can do. The sky's the limit. And my biggest thing is intention and creativity. So when you get when you get a dog to first do a behavior, you can use a lot of different, like sometimes people use a lot of lures. I use a target stick. So I teach them to touch their nose to either my hand or to this little stick with a ball on the end. And so then I can guide them onto different skateboards or different things, right? And I'm just very creative, and I don't buy into this, my dog will never do it. I go, no, there's been dogs in the past that have learned how to do this. I just got to go be more resourceful. And so like I always find the answer to everything. So people either have time or money. And for me, when I was starting off, I had a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time figuring out how to do these things. And so now I got more money than time. And so now I can pay people and I can cut things down even shorter, right? And both of them are totally acceptable options. So decide if you got time or money, and then decide what your outcome is, what you want to train your dog to do, and do it. Because hard decisions, easy life. Easy decisions, hard life.
Yeah, and that's well said. Absolutely well said. Man, I really do appreciate you being on here, and you do have an awesome place for the guests to go. If you really want to engage and learn more about what Brady does, you can go out to newdirectiondogtraining.com. That's newdirectiondogtraining.com. and you're actually eligible to even join the free canine community. And I'm going to go do that myself because I think it's always cool to get to hear other issues and also successes that other pet owners have. And I'm sure that's what your community is all about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that community real quick? I'm just deciding what it is, and you really should tell me what it is.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, we got a Facebook group where we share different things. I share stories of curiosity. I'm training her to ride the skateboard, so I'm posting videos on that, and I share clips and tips and tricks. And then my newest thing is I'm starting a book club, so that's just about ready to go. So we got a waiting list for that. I love reading. I believe leaders are readers. So, and I believe getting information from other people too. So in this community, we're going to be breaking down books. We're going to be talking, sharing wins. I'm just sharing tips and tricks from my dogs and like what I'm doing. It's a little bit of everything. It's just a fun spot. And give me a follow on Instagram too, because same community over there. It's ND Dog Training. So it's N as in new, D as in direction, dog training.
Awesome. Great. Well, Brady, I sure do appreciate you being on here, man. It's been a great, insightful show. I wish you all the success in the future. I am going to go out there and join the dog community, so hopefully we'll stay connected as well. I welcome you to also follow me on any of the different social medias that you may be out there with. Always look forward to sharing all the stories that we tell with folks and help them in any of the different ways that we possibly can over at the Health and Wealth Power Hour too. So, man, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, man. Hey, try to stay cool. So, one last little tidbit there. I'm in San Antonio. Brady is in Austin. The day that we're speaking today, it's over. It's still May. I know this will be released much later in the year, and it's already going to be hot, but it's still May. We're actually doing this on Memorial Day is when we're recording it. It's over 100 degrees at both of our places, and I think though feels like it's 115. So we are definitely indoors today, as are our fuzzy friends, because, man, it ain't a good day to be outside.
Yeah, we were on a walk really early this morning, and it was still hot. And I was like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
8 minutes, you can't even go outside.
Yeah, too hot to go outside. That's all right. Thank you. Thank the Lord for air conditioning. That's one of those days. All right. Thanks again, Brady. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Catch you next time on the Health and Wealth Power Hour. We are out of here.